Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path, and we're starting day 2 of our VIC High Country Trip, and we're starting the morning at Howitt Hut where we camped the night before, packing up camp, and then we head south on the Howitt Plains Rd down to the start of the northern end of the Caledonia River Track. This is a track I've been wanting to do for the last few years, so it was great to get the chance to do that, and starts off with a fairly steady descent. The initial section is sort of fairly up and down, and then when you get to this corner here where my cursor is now, it's a fairly steady descent there down to the river. Works its way along the river, number of river crossings. Now at the time we were here, none of these crossings were particularly deep. Really scenic track. Definitely recommend it. And then as we got towards the end of it, instead of continuing on the Dingo Hill track and working our way out to Tambaretha Road, we turned right, had a pretty steep climb up towards the tail end of Butcher Country. This ridgeline along here had some spectacular views, and there were steep climbs and pretty steep descents, particularly the tail end down to the Macalister River Track. And then once we got down to Macalister River, we found a cracking lunch spot at the first river crossing there, and that's where today's video ends. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are starting day 2 at Howitt Hut, starting with breakfast. Camp's still set up. You can see Matt's already, I think, sorted out his breakfast. He's packing up already, and not too long after that we're on the road. A little bit clearer today than yesterday, not quite as foggy. So yeah, just heading back out past Howitt Hut onto the Howitt Plains Rd. Heading south today to do the Caledonia River Track. You can see the horses in the paddock that we saw come in last night from the riding group, and there's another just brief shot there of Howitt Hut. So yeah, not too far, and we're back out on Howitt Plains Rd heading south. It's only a few k's south to Caledonia River Track. Didn't stop me from finding a distraction along the way though. As you can see, they're a little bit hazy. Howitt Plains Rod's still pretty rough in sections. Very scenic in sections as well. Some fantastic views off to the right there as you make your way along through some of these sections. With views on this side back down towards Wanagata. And it wasn't too long, following along on my HEMA HX2 that I used for navigating in the vehicle, I could see coming up here there was a lookout, so I was keeping an eye out for that. I mean, there's a few spots that you could consider lookouts. This one seemed like it was higher up than the main road and marked, and it looked like this track here on the right might go up to that lookout, so thought, why not? Let's check it out. It looked like it's been driven at least a little bit. And the only way you find out where these tracks go is to go and drive them. So it started off pretty easy. It wasn't too long before I came around the corner and could see some pretty decent rock steps up ahead. It was still early in the morning, so the rocks were a little bit wet. A little bit of dew on them from overnight. And you can see right there, it looks like I've hit nothing, but already traction control's got to work pretty hard for me to get really any progress. Now, I've sort of stopped there as well because I'm looking at that rock step. A little bit hard to see from this angle, but I'm sort of wondering where the line is there as well. and just not a lot of traction to be had there. So just not getting enough drive on those front wheels, and the rear wheels are just sitting in some loose stuff and spinning, trying to climb up over that rock. Now maybe it needed a bit more momentum, but I didn't want to go too fast and risk breaking something. I was certainly happy to have another crack. And another crack. And you can see I've got the front wheels there up on that rock step, but just not getting the traction to sort of go anywhere. And once you start backing down, it's very hard to get the traction here on this surface to get going again. So look, rather than waste too much time and potentially break something, decided that discretion was the better part of valor here, and reversed it back down. So Luca was giving me some good spotting there on the handheld.
Okay, bang, done. Keep going straight, keep going. Right hand down a little bit, just a tiny bit, that's enough. Keep going.
It's one of the things with the wagons, once you've got sort of a draw set up and what have you in the back, your vision out the back's not the best. So pushed on another kilometre or so, and here we are at the start of the Caledonia River Track. And look, based on some videos I'd seen from a few years ago, I was expecting mud and bog holes and all that sort of thing. None of that, at least at the moment. So you can certainly see this top section has some potential to be soft at different times. But it was nice and firm, plenty of traction when we were there. Tight little switchbacks here and there as it works its way down. And we're actually a fair way in at this point. It's probably 1.5 kilometres in, and this is where the gate is for the seasonal closure. So if you didn't know this track was seasonally closed and you somehow got up onto the Howitt Plains Road, which you probably can do in winter, and decided to tackle this track, you're going to get 1.5 kilometres in before you hit the gate and realise it's actually seasonally closed and you have to turn around. Some cracking views from this section. It was a nice ridge section of track, which as I went through the route for this particular video, you would have seen there was a lot of ridge tracking in this first few kilometres of the track. So all in all, Caledonia River Track's about 20 kilometres long, and well worth the drive. Well worth the drive. From sections like this where you're up on a ridge line and you've got amazing views all around, to sections later on when you get down closer to the river, so worth it. Clearly this is one of those sections where we're starting our descent down. It's always a fair indication when you just see the trees disappearing down. And you can certainly see with how steep this is why it's seasonally closed. It's not something you'd want to be tackling in wet conditions at all. And again, as always, this camera angle is not really doing it justice. You get some idea of just how steep it is looking at the approach there, but it's proper steep. So I think Luca in his patrol is probably just sitting in first gear low range and barely using his brakes. I was certainly using my brakes. The Pajero has the highest low gearing out of the three vehicles, and I think Matt was not using his brakes a whole lot in his Prado, to be honest. Gearing in that was a little better. Again, Just an amazing ridgeline section of track, almost reminiscent of the neck at Billy Goat's Bluff, in terms of just how narrow it is and how much the track falls away. And some great views right down the valley in several directions there. And as is always the case with this steep stuff, it's just a case of slow and steady. Use your low gearing. Let the vehicle do as much work as it can. And there's plenty of washouts on this track to direct water off the track. As you can certainly see. Again, not too long before, like a lot of high country tracks, you're working your way along with a drop off on one side. Hope this is sort of showing you guys just how scenic this track is. As I said, it's not a difficult technical drive. You just need to keep your vehicle in low range, manage your speed. And yeah, these switchbacks here were very, very tight. I think this one, I don't get around in one wheel lock, which is unusual. Usually in the Padge, I can make most of these in one wheel lock. Probably if I'd swung just a little bit wider, I would have. But certainly something you'd want to think about if you were going to, not that I recommend it, but if you were going to try and bring a camper trailer down here, you'd really want to think about and be comfortable that you're going to be able to manage these really, really tight switchbacks if you're going to try and tackle something like that. Not quite a 180 switchback there, but as I said, you can see this section of track as we're working our way down to the valley floor where the river is. It's just a long, steady descent. This one was fairly steep and a little bit off camber. Again, I've just elected to swing wide and take this as a 3-point turn. With the right line, you probably could have done it with a single swing, but yeah, they're certainly very sharp. Tree fall here that somebody fortunately had cleared before we got there. Always helpful.
You copy that? Coming around the hairpin now. I think it's the next hairpin after the one you're at.
And so some onboard footage here from Luca's vehicle of that same section of track, with Luca driving his Patrol and Matt in front there in
Caledonia
his
River Track.
Prado.
Tight hairpin too, isn't it? Yeah, real tight. And then that hump, I hit pretty hard going over that next hump.
So yeah, that didn't come through in the video, I don't think. You can see, I think Matt might make this on one lock in the Prado. Not quite. Luca in the Patrol, I don't think he's even going to try and do it in one lock. He's just going to leave it as a 3-point turn. Matt's taking it slow and steady there over that hump. So again, I don't think he came through on the GoPro microphone, but I definitely did get a decent little kiss going over that. Just was going a little bit too fast. But taking it nice and slow, there's no real issue there.
I'll just stop him if you can, because I can't pull over here. Yeah, same. So stopped at the moment.
So you just heard probably over the radio there, coming down this next section of track, we did meet somebody coming the other way. Not sure why I've paused just there, but probably adjusting my navigation. We're just waiting for the other guys to catch up. And you always wonder when you're driving tracks like this, what if I meet somebody coming the other way? How's that going to work? It always seems to work out. Somebody finds a spot to pull over or make a space, and you manage to get past. Again, I think that'd be more of an issue if you were going to try and bring a camper trailer or something like that down here. You'd probably find it quite a bit more difficult. So yeah, as you can see there, heading down fairly narrow, steep section of track here with a good drop off on one side, and I've just seen a red patrol coming the other way. So shout out to Angus there. And we weren't on the same channel at this point, but just kind of looking, going, okay, what's going to happen here? And I'm like, well, I know the guys behind me can't go anywhere, so I'm actually on the radio to them at the moment, letting them know. And thought, well, it looks like it could be a bit wider down there. I'll head down. And fortunately, there was a spot where we could get past. It did take a little bit of a shuffle. But just a little bit of a wider section here. So yeah, Angus was able to move over, create a space there where there was just enough room for me to edge past, and then he had to shuffle. So once I pulled over, he had to shuffle forward to sort of open the back door for me to get past him and continue on down the track. So there's not always a perfect spot for overtaking, but you can usually find a way to make it work. So just having a chat to him, letting him know I've got two more coming down behind me, and he's going to sit there and wait for them and do the same manoeuvre to let us past. So you can see there, look, he's been able to pull forward because I'm far enough over to the side, left me plenty of room to pull back onto the track and continue on down. Definitely could be challenging if you'd had multiple vehicles going in both directions. Down here on the corner, down the bottom, there was another section that was a little bit wider. Not that you'd really want to be reversing down this all the way, I don't think. But I guess you'd find a way, and everybody would just need to choose a spot to actually be able to overtake. So yeah, as I mentioned, you can see here there's quite a wide area on this corner where you could get past other vehicles. So I just pulled in there and waited for the other guys, Matt and Luca, to get past the red patrol. And it wasn't too much longer and we're on our way. Getting a lot closer down towards the bottom section of the Caledonia River Track here. And so I'm not sure if from when I saw videos from a few years ago to now, possibly this bottom section's been graded. I could certainly imagine that it could get fairly wet down here, but yeah, it was the only wet spots really were in the river, so not so much of an issue for us. So you probably just saw come up on screen there, coming down from Howitt Road to the Caledonia River Valley here where the river actually runs. We've dropped about 600 metres vertically in height, so it's a fair drop over a few kilometres, most of it. But as you can see, once you get down here, it's quite lush bushland down close to the river, as you'd expect, with good water supply, and not a difficult track to drive at all. Camping spots galore down here. There's so many spots that are right on the river. You could pull up, set up a camp. We did see quite a lot of people fishing in the river. Obviously a popular spot for that. And again, I lost count of exactly how many crossings we had, but there was certainly plenty of crossings of the Caledonia River. So little sections like that were a little bit soft just at the moment, I guess. You know, give them 12, 18 months and some wet weather, they could turn into some fairly muddy bog holes, but they're certainly not there at the moment. Just really, really scenic down through here. And as I said, you can see here near the crossing, track's obviously gotten a bit wet with water being dragged out of the river crossing by vehicles. Just a really nice scenic river crossing. Not very deep at all at the time of year we were driving it, early in January. Nice fast flowing river, but yeah. Different time of year, closer to the seasonal closure, it could be a little deeper. Just super scenic down along the river. And yeah, after that crossing, there were a couple of little puddles, maybe little tributaries of the river sort of flowing around it. Again, not deep. And yeah, you're on your way. Most of this track down along the river is almost a two-wheel drive track. It's really not difficult in its current condition at the moment at all. The difficulty, I think, lies in getting there because both ends, the access seems steep. Certainly the way we went out was very steep, in both directions, steep climb, steep descent, and likewise the way we came in from Howitt Plains Rd was also pretty steep. And as is always the case with this track, it's not too long and we're back to yet another river crossing. Almost postcard picture perfect. Look how clear that water is. Plenty of birds down along the river as well, so this is the same crossing. Just with Matt coming across first in his Prado, and then Luca in the GU. You can see there just ahead some amazing rock cliffs forming part of the valley. And again, you could easily find yourself a camp spot down here, do some fishing, and really take your time exploring. Some more traffic coming the other way, but he's pulled right off the track for us. Made it very easy. A little bit easier on these flat sections compared to the steeper descents. Not quite a river crossing this one. You can see we're paralleling the river there, and this is just really an overflow section. But yeah, just very scenic. You got the cliffs on one side, you got the river on the left hand side there. You're right on the water here with the track. This is definitely up there with one of my most favourite tracks in the VIC High Country to drive, just in terms of how scenic it was. It's not super difficult. The descent in and the climb out, and then the descent, a lot of fun. But the actual track itself, just super, super scenic. So I guess this is one of those areas that over time could turn into a bit of a bog hole. Certainly there's mud there at the moment, but it wasn't super soft. And was easy enough just to push straight through. Not sure if that was caused by a spring or what. You can see there a little track off to the left to one of those campsites that I've alluded to along the river there. There are heaps of them. Getting a little bit of a soft spot here, getting closer to the river again. And I could imagine over time they could get a little larger and a little softer and present a little bit more of a challenge, but not at the moment. And of course, you're never too far from a river crossing on this track. A lot of these were fairly wide river crossings, but certainly not deep. Pretty good entrances and exits for them as well, by and large, so nice and rocky, firm bases. Always handy when I've got some other people along and I can get some external footage. Gives you a little bit more of a perspective on the crossings, what they actually look like and how deep they are. You get a better picture of that watching the outside than you do from the GoPro mounted on the top of the windscreen. One of the little side streams feeding into the Caledonia River. And the river's just down there to the right. You might catch some glimpses of that. We do in this section just move away from the river for a little bit, I think, but once again, pretty soon we're back doing another crossing. Super clear water. And we've got some footage here of that same crossing, shot from Luca's patrol.
Well, this certainly beats just driving along the potholed Maroka Road, doesn't it?
Yeah, a bit over Maroka Road.
Couldn't agree more with that. And that's the thing, like, it does basically parallel Maroka Road down to Tambaritha Road. If you were heading south back towards Lake Hola, this would be a great way to go. Might take you a little bit longer, but so much more enjoyable than just trudging along that potholed road. Another nice crossing here. A little bit deeper than some of the others, but still not what you'd call a deep crossing. A little bit of a steeper exit. Still not difficult by any stretch of the imagination. Did manage to get some footage there showing you the river. Just a really pretty river, the Caledonia River. Matt bringing the trusty Prado across the river there. And Luca in the GU. You do tend to hear that coming. And you can see here, middle of the bush, what do we see? A pedestrian. So one of those fishermen that I mentioned. So I think he's parked back down there, walking down the river, finding a place to start, and then working his way, fly fishing back towards his vehicle. Yet another quick crossing here of the Caledonia River. And look, this has turned into a fairly long video, this one. It's always hard when editing to make the decisions on what do I keep in and what do I cut out. I always figure if it's too long, you guys can skip ahead if you so desire. You don't have to watch the entire thing. But it's just such a pretty track, and the scenery does vary a little bit. And there's so many crossings, I did decide to include pretty much all of them. Again, this is a section obviously that I think could get a little bit more boggy and soft over time. Had a nice firm base on it when we came through, so it wasn't too much of an issue for us. And again here, getting closer towards the end of the Caledonia River Track, where we turn on to the track that joins across to Butcher Country. We've worked our way up a little bit higher than the river, but very quickly come back down towards it as well. Again, even a spot like that, you can see there's remains of a campfire in there. If there's only one or two vehicles and you had rooftop tents or something like that, myriad of spots where you could just pull off to the side, set yourself up, and you'd be right on the river. Almost on the bend of the river here with this crossing. And And a cracking view there of those rock formations, those cliffs there where the river works its way around. Just amazing scenery. Did take the opportunity to shoot some out the window there with the Sony. Probably still doesn't really do it justice. Again, places like this, I think it's just so worth the effort to get there and enjoy it and experience it for yourself. Again, we've got some onboard footage here from Luca. Gives you a little bit of a sense of scale there. They did tend to be fairly rocky crossings, but again, that didn't make them particularly difficult at all. Presuming those rocks have been put there by people in the past to mark the best place for crossing, so sort of lined ourselves up to cross between the rocks. And again, just took the opportunity to go back and film the other guys coming across here. Such a scenic bend in the river with the rock faces on one side and the river flowing around. The two crossings here were really quite close together. I think in bad weather, or if the track was a lot wetter, it'd be a very different thing driving this track in those sort of conditions. But weather had been generally fine. There hadn't been a lot of rain when we were there, and consequently the river wasn't very deep. And we've actually reached the end of the Caledonia River Track. On the left there is Dingo Hill Track, which will take you out to Tamboretha Road. And on the right here, we've headed on the Butcher Country Link Track. So this track is about 4 kilometres long, I think. And then there's a 3 kilometre section on the end of Butcher Country before you rejoin the main track. This very initial section is pretty flat, but it wasn't too long at all before it starts climbing. Basically come around this corner and it's pretty much starting. Again, as always, this camera angle doesn't do it any justice. Coming around that corner is like, okay, here we go, we're going up. And it didn't really let up anytime soon. You climb up to this corner, round this corner, and it just keeps going. The track's in really good condition, plenty of traction, no big rocks or rock steps or anything like that, but it is a long, steady climb. And your vehicle certainly will be working to get up there, that's for sure. If you were going to try and bring a camper trailer in, I don't know, but this access from Macalister River Track might be the best way, but as I said, I wouldn't recommend it. And if you were, you'd want to have at least one other vehicle with you just to assist in case you got into any issues. Wasn't much of an opportunity along most of this section to really pull up anywhere because it was just such a steady climb. and really wanted to keep moving and keep the momentum going. A little bit rougher through here, and as you can see, we're still climbing pretty steadily. And every time you sort of crest one of those humps and you think you're there, you look ahead and realise that the track is just sort of continuing going. I think there was a quick stop for a GoPro change on one of those washout humps that divert the water off the track. And look, I've kept all this footage in here just to show you how long and steady this initial climb up from the Caledonia River Track is. It's perhaps not quite as steep as the descent was down from Howitt Plains, where initially it was sort of up and down and a bit of a ridge track, and then you descended very quickly down to the river. Maybe not quite as steep as that, but still plenty steep. This section here you can see is a little bit looser, a little bit more rock exposed. Vehicles moving around a fair bit more, and we're still going up. So I did manage to pull over there and just wait and get some footage of the other guys coming up. I think with the external shot like this, you get a little bit better sense of just how steep that is. You can see the hill falling away beyond that corner. Matt bringing the Prado up. These modern vehicles, traction control does help you out a lot. Something that I'm interested to see with the 76 series, now that I've got that. He's got some nice suspension on that GU Luca. You can see it flexing nicely, keeping the wheels in contact, and just crawling his way up, no fuss.
I thought from the maps this track looks steep and interesting, and it's not disappointing.
No.
So true. So again, we got some onboard footage from Luca. Gives you a little bit better perspective. You can see how much dust the Page is throwing up there, climbing up these hills, and you can see how vicious that trip up over the washout hump there is. Pretty steep, pretty sharp.
It's Jason from Off the Beaten Path, invited me along, which I appreciate. Doing a terrific job.
Appreciate that coming from Luca. He's been doing this a lot longer than me. And as you can see, it's not too long and you're up pretty high. There's various spots along here where you get some great views as well. After that initial sort of fairly steep climb, it does turn into a bit of a ridge track for a while, just a couple of kilometres before beginning the descent back down to the Macalister River. Another good little climb here, and again got the opportunity to show some footage from behind. So out in front here it looks nice and clear. From behind you can see just how much the tyres are working to drag the car up this hill and just how much dust they're throwing up. Very different perspective from behind to in front. And for those that are wondering, Luca's petrol is a TB48, 4.8 litre petrol. Hopefully I got that right this time. And once again, the track just changed so quickly in character. One minute you're climbing these sort of red dirt hills with gravel, the next minute you're driving through bush and you're sort of enclosed and it's not too steep at all. Did start to see a couple of little puddles here and there. Again, over time I could see these sections getting a little wetter and more challenging. You can see there's already some ruts formed on this next section of track, but the main base itself was fine, and in this particular case easy enough just to span and drive over the top. It wasn't particularly soft, but I could see these sections here, a bit more traffic, a bit wetter weather, they're just going to turn into bog holes no doubt, but at the moment very drivable. A little bit of a case of, you know, where's the best line, and yeah, it did pick up a little bit of mud there. And again, you can see Luca and Matt there, they've been able to span the ruts on that rear section the same as I did. And then it's a bit of a choose your own adventure here. But nice firm base and not too hard to find your way through. Matt was just waiting there for the track ahead to clear. Again, you can span the majority of those ruts, but there's no escaping driving through at least some of that bog hole. So I'm not sure if these sections are sections that I've seen on other videos for Caledonia River Track when they had turned into more bog holes. I'm really not sure, because this is really the Butcher Country link track, but yeah, either way, this is the current state of this track, and they haven't turned into full-on bog holes just yet. So we're starting to get over to the western side of this range and begin the descent down towards the Macalister River. It's not all completely downhill from here, but we're starting to work our way down in stages. And this section of track here is quite steep in various places. Probably just as steep as the descent was from Howitt Plain. Certainly the later sections when we get a little bit closer to Macalister River. And I did find on this descent here, there's a couple of spots like this where there's an A line and a B line, a little bit rockier there on the right hand side. Wasn't too sure exactly what was going on there, so just stayed on what looked like the main track line and went around that. Did look reasonably drivable though, but yeah, when you're coming at it and you're from above and you can't quite see it, just as easy to take the what looks like the main track anyway around it. And I think you can probably see some of the glimpses of the ranges around both sides. And before we start the main descent down to the river, cracking lookout here. So this lookout is marked on the HEMA maps. I'm not sure what other maps it's marked on, but certainly marked on the HEMAs. And well worth pulling up. As you can see, there's not heaps of trees blocking your view or anything like that. It's a cracking lookout with some amazing views out to the north there. VIC High Country. Just a cracking spot. And after a stop there at that lookout, we're on our way. A little bit of a climb here, and I think this could be the last one. And now we start the main descent, I believe, down to Macalister River. A little bit more of that red dirt. And as you can see, the track's just disappearing there. Either line here looked as good or bad as the other, so yeah, just took the right-hand line. As much as anything, these would be great spots for overtaking if you had vehicles coming the other way as well. So possibly that's their purpose. Not sure. A little bit more rutted and softer looking as we're getting down, but still got a fair way to go. And again, you know, you can see that tree line just dipping down as we're working our way down the side of this range down to the river. And of course, what descent track is complete without a good 180 degree switchback? You got to have them. Not quite as tight as the Howitt Road end of the track, where we pretty much all needed to do those in a 3-point turn. And it was almost a case of the closer we got to the river, the steeper the track almost seemed to get. Yeah, plenty of evidence of the bushfires that came through this country a few years ago now. Yeah, and very probably similar to the Howitt Road end, but track does vary a bit more here, a little bit more weathered probably, and some of this yellow softer dirt that I think is definitely over time going to break up a little more. I reckon 12-18 months this will be probably a much more challenging track unless they grade it again. It does have the look of something that's been pretty recently graded, and consequently very drivable at the time that we drove it here in January of 2023. And it does just keep going down and down and down. Now I didn't get the height levels here. Bonus line, yeah, there on the left. I didn't even quite realise that. I might have had a look at that, but from the top I couldn't tell whether it connected or not. But then as you come around, you can see it is another one of those little tracks that deviate off the side, so provide an overtaking spot, or you know, just an alternative line coming down this very, very long hill. So just pulled up there to let the other guys know. A little bit of variety when you're heading down these long hills doesn't hurt. So Matt was the first to tackle that. When you're kind of just sitting in first or second gear low range, heading down a very, very long hill, it's nice to have the chance to tackle something a little more technical. Cameraman here is just doing a fantastic job. It's hard to get good help. Don't know what he was thinking. You can see Matt there just taking it nice and slow and steady, easing the Prado down over the rock step. A bit of a bounce out of the bottom, and he's through. Woo-hoo! Nicely done. And Luca's not far behind, bringing the big GU. You can see that thing flexes quite nicely. Certainly compared to an IFS vehicle anyway. Bit of a bounce there off that last rock step, but making it look pretty easy. And again, you're getting some idea here of just how steep this is, but definitely not doing it justice at all. See the track falling away from that bend there. Not super wide and a pretty steep drop off on the side, despite the fact we are getting pretty close to the bottom of this where the Macalister River is. And you can probably just see there coming into picture the Macalister River Track. Finally reached the bottom of the valley here where the Macalister River is. Now the Macalister River Track does run north and south. In this case our plan was to head south. So did exactly that, and by this time it was early afternoon and we were sort of long overdue for a lunch stop. We had decided to push on and try and find a lunch spot down along the Macalister River. And it wasn't too long before we did just that. Found this little crossing here, nice big rock bar sort of in the middle of the river, and we thought that was a cracking spot to pull up and sort out some lunch. So as always guys, thanks for watching, especially if you've watched all the way to the end here. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been one of my favourite trips. Scenery and the guys along on the trip was just awesome. So catch you in the next video. Here's some shorts of what you're going to see.